Yo, what's good, YouTube? What's good? It's Stormybman, and I am back. Welcome to Post-Fight Show. Stormybman. I got my man Boxing Conversation with Reggie on. Sorry for the little bit of delay there, people. We're trying to get things going behind the scenes to get ready to bring this show to you. Hope you all had a chance to enjoy the fights this evening. This night we are covering the fight card, which was live on Showtime, and it was Lipinets versus Clayton in the main event. So with no further ado, let me introduce my co-host of the show, Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, who had a fresh call on the fight tonight. What's going on, Reggie? How you doing, bro?
Doing good on this fight night weekend, man. Some good fights on all week, man. Good stuff right here. Good stuff.
Yeah, man. What a another home run I figure that they put on with the shows that we got a chance to see this evening. And hey, man, it doesn't always go like it should go in boxing, but what can we expect from the sport, man? Listen, let's go right on ahead and dive on into the main event here, because there are a lot of people out here who were coming over from your channel looking to hear our take on it and discuss what we just saw. I mean, the fight card just ended about 20 minutes ago, and let's dive right on into it, man. I was hearing you as I was trying to get set up, your comments on that majority decision draw. And I agree with what you said. When you have two judges that might score it a tie score, and then you have one in favor of the fighter, the tie should go to the fighter, right? I mean, the tiebreaker should go to the fighter. It shouldn't be held up as a draw in that sense, because if someone saw it clearly, a defining manner, then that decision should override the two draws. So let's talk about that, Reggie. First and foremost, salute to Mr. Clayton, man, because he performed well enough to be in consideration for a decision here. But not only that, Reggie, I think he had a lot more to do. It's like I felt like his corner could have ridden him more. It brings me back to the fight between Evander Holyfield and Michael Moorer, their first go around, when Moorer had to be coaxed and pushed and pressed into pulling a victory out against Holyfield by Teddy Atlas at that time. So let's get your take on things. Go ahead and chop it up with us right quick.
Yeah, on this one, man, Clayton, and it was crazy. He had some of his family in the chat as well. Those who say they know him, but he left a lot in that ring, like you said. He left a lot. He could have gave way more. He should have been pushed way harder to go out there and give more. And what I was seeing from him was his jab. He had a very solid jab, a nice, crisp jab. It's a great speed up on it. He's a very solid dude. Defensively, he's very high and tight. Lipinets really couldn't land on this dude. Lipinets was loading up, trying to throw in power. Lipinets spent more time throwing bombs to his arm. He stayed completely covered in this fight. The one thing I watched him early on in the fight was that he looked a little bit scared. He looked a little bit scared. He looked real jittery going into this one. I don't think it was being the fear of Lipinets so much, but being in fear of the moment that and out here he's a last-minute replacement, to being that he's up at this position. I think the butterflies were flying around through his stomach, and he looked real jittery. Wasn't letting the hands go too much, moved backwards a lot, fired off the jab off the back foot, didn't really start to settle down until I think about the 5th or 6th round, where he landed a shot. And once he landed these shots, it was like those punches inspired him. Then he started trying to bring the fight, holding his ground a little bit, trying to walk forward, throwing his punches. Then he goes right back into fighting off this back foot, backing up. But in the moments where he stood his ground, he was countering Lipinets very well. He was freezing Lipinets' offense, stopping that forward pressure Lipinets was trying to bring. And it ultimately fell on him. So for him to pull a draw out in a fight like that, and even based on what I was seeing, I didn't think he was pulling that many rounds in until I started counting up my card. He could have gave more of an effort going into this fight. And I believe he was, if he would have put more of an effort in this fight based on watching Lipinets shake his arms out, being how fatigued Lipinets was being, because Lipinets was having to throw the kitchen sink to try to get some punches on this guy. And not once did Lipinets ever hurt the guy. They both banged well to the body with the straight punches. I just think it all fell on this all fell on Clayton, who could have really pulled himself away in this fight had he stood his ground a little bit more, move, pivot a little bit more, and just box. His boxing is very well. Like I said, his jab is flash, man. He got a real quick flashing jab. It's just, man, he has to kick himself in the butt after he watches this fight and see that. But then again, he has to learn how to relax and stay calm. But all in all, it was a good fight. The majority draw stuff is stupid. There's some other stupid crap going on in the sport of boxing. What the heck is a majority draw? 2 judges see it the same, 1 doesn't. 1 gave it to the other fighter. Therefore, that majority, the deciding judge, the one splitting judge should be the determining factor. You got to split in a fighter that's ahead. So that's the way it should have went. This majority draw stuff is something that has to be changed within the sport, and they need to look over it.
Yeah, and let me take a quick moment out and ask the people that's in the chat. Could you guys hit the like button, please? I see we got far more people out there listening in the chat that's watching that didn't come in and hit the like button. I mean, we take our time now to bring you this show and to discuss the fight for those that didn't see it, as well as for those who did get a chance to see it and listen on with Reggie's call. But it'd be nice if you guys show a little respect there and hit the like button, for us out here, because we do try to bring this to you with quality and everything. So please take a moment and do that. Also, I want to acknowledge Chi-Town Finest with the Cash App donation. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. And appreciate your comments earlier in Reggie's chat and the call for the fight. But yeah, Reggie, this is the type of fight where, because it was the bright lights for Clayton, he needed a little something more from the corner. He really needed that in this instance, and it was amateur night for them as well. This is not, my statement is not a disrespectful statement, but it is a honest assessment, because it was their big stage as well. And you guys have to know that this is what you work for. When you're in that gym and you're preparing this young man and you're out there, remember, once that bell rings, his life is on the line. So you have to be sharp. You have to bring your A game. You have to be ready to coax your fighter into a situation of being prepared to win or to lose, but also be prepared to do what you got to do to bring the best and to bring him home, because this was a fight that was tremendously winnable for him. Now, Reggie, as I go back and recall how you were calling the fight, we agreed on the first 3 rounds that you had given to Lipinets, because you were calling it out, as each round ended. Your broadcast was about 40 seconds ahead of mine. And starting with rounds 4 and 5, I gave to Clayton, because it looked like he had gotten warmed up, he had shaken out the butterflies, and he was ready to start fighting. But what I do recall, and you even read my comment in your chat, was I said he's doing that shitty one-punch jab thing and moving. He needed variation. He needed to step it up and start doubling up on that jab, hooking off the jab, giving Lipinets something different to look at. And that's the difference between the other fighters that are at the top of the division, that if Lipinets goes on and get a title shot or something, he's going to run into that type of problem because those fighters are seasoned enough to do what they need to do. This was a situation where Clayton wasn't as seasoned enough to be confident to let his hands go. But I saw immediately after the first couple of rounds 1 and 2, that he had enough on his punches that Lipinets wasn't going to go wading in with him like he did with who was the brother that he beat up and had to retire. What's his name, Reggie? I don't have
Lamont Peterson.
There you go. See, when he waded in against Peterson, he went in with no fear or whatever, because the power that was coming from Peterson would have to really, really load up on something to get respect. But this man was naturally heavy-handed. And you called it in the first round. You was like, "Ooh, this guy got some sting on that jab." Remember you saying that?
Oh, hey, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So, Lipinets was put on notice from that moment. But these are the type of things that the cornerman was supposed to recognize. Now, I could hear them yelling to him, "Yeah, do it again. Follow up with this or that or whatever." But what you're supposed to do when the lad comes back to the corner, you give him 3 things. 3. You don't give him a whole assortment of instructions and directions. You give him 3. You know why? Because he's going to remember 1. If you give him too much, he may not remember anything. But if you give him 3, he's going to remember 1. And the one that you want him to remember is the most important. And that was to make sure that you let your hands go in every sequence. When something lands solidly, follow up with 2, 3, 4 more. Don't just be happy to admire your work. Don't be just happy that you scored and try to get the hell out of there. This is not a dash, grab and dash, okay? This is your arrival. This is you coming out. This is your coming out party. And you were supposed to send that message to Sergey Lipinets that I have arrived, I'm on the scene, and this is my show. He was very hesitant throughout the fight, Lipinets. He's a great bluffer. Man, hate to play the guy in the card game because he is poker faced, okay? But not enough poker face for me, because if I was in his corner, if you notice, not even Mr. Goosen could drive more out of him because of what he was dealing with. And Goosen was basically keeping him on par to be competitive, keep applying the pressure, because a lot of times in instances when you're applying pressure, it gives the perception that you are the aggressor and are winning. But the punches were being blocked off of Clayton's gloves and arms, and he wasn't being hit cleanly at all. If you look at him at the end of the fight, he barely had any marks on his face. He was very defensively responsible with making sure that he didn't catch too much, okay? And that's great. But on the offensive side, he was supposed to take a different stance. Particularly, he didn't have to do it from the entire fight, but when you had like 3, 4 rounds to go, that's when you have to make that change in that press. Because when you do that, then you put Lipinets in a different type of position, and he'll have to get desperate because he feels the pressure. And when he gets desperate, that's when you can catch him and get him. Because it got to a certain point after round 7, when Lipinets was coming in with certain shots that he was trying, those body shots and hooks and uppercuts, that Clayton was spinning out of there and catching him with something singularly, but he wasn't following up. So I'm like, oh, these coaches, they need to tell him what he needs to do, because these are the things that are going to turn the fight around for him. All in all, I had him winning. My scorecard total was 116 to 112. And it was amazing because when I got to round 10, I realized how many rounds I was giving him. And it wasn't that I was giving him the rounds because I was just favoring the guy. I was giving him the rounds because of the shots, the difference between his scoring shots and Lipinets scoring shots. And his shots were much more damaging, which was why Lipinets didn't sell out and go for a knockout. He was worried about the incoming. So when I looked up, I'm like, man, after round 6, which is the last round that I gave to Lipinets, I had him sweeping the rest of the fight. And I wasn't doing it consciously. I was doing it on the merits of what I'm looking at in there. I was looking at him boxing. He was boxing very well. He was defending very well. He just didn't have enough output to make it for certain. So think of it like this. When those guys who were sitting ringside, the Bernsteins and those dudes, when they said things like, I could see I would be comfortable with a draw, what they're saying is, I really hate to see that Lipinets lost. Okay? That's what that really was. Understand what you're looking at. Understand what you're hearing. Because this guy was supposedly, on paper, coming from nowhere. But once you saw him fighting, you could see he could compete. And he was at the level that he should be. But you don't give it to a guy just because he had a name in the sport much longer at the top of the division and has been on TV. If he got his butt whooped, he got his butt whooped. Okay? And it's just like when Oscar De La Hoya fought that middleweight. Again, forgive me right now because I got so much going on. I can't remember the young man's name. But that guy beat De La Hoya. And since he had that fight on the horizon with Bernard Hopkins, they gave De La Hoya that decision. But he did not beat that man. And it's like that's the time when boxing really stinks. When people who work hard, because these men go into the gym and they sacrifice their bodies, they sacrifice their time, they diet. Felix Sternum, that's right, Chi-Town's finest. Thank you so much for that, brother. They sacrifice so much to get themselves at a peak where they could go out here and perform. And when someone performs like he did tonight, they deserve the merit. I didn't know this guy. I had not seen him before tonight. But as I saw the rounds and the competition that was taking place, I had no choice but to really score the fight as it was going. And I had him out front. And as I said, Lipinets never sold out. He never said, you know what, this fight is too close. Let me try to knock this kid out or at least drop him or something. He didn't. Why? Because the kid had something. Okay? And so this is something that is definitely a building block for Clayton, but he could improve by leaps and bounds, by understanding in the middle of that ring, in the center. Get your shots off and step to the left or the right and be prepared to let something else fly again. You don't have to be moving around like that and burning up all of your energy and stuff like that. Because when you have skills, which he has, when you have pop, which he has, and you have the ability to be thinking under pressure, which he has, he showed it all night long. Be confident that you can make somebody run away from you, even if it's a top guy in the division. Because he was thinking clearly under fire the entire night. I didn't see him have any lapses. I didn't see him do foolish things. He kept his hands up. It was none of that shoulder roll crap with the arm, the left hand down and all of that. He gave Lipinets none of that, which a lot of guys today do. He fought like a professional, okay? And he was in there taking care of business. He just needed a little bit more of a concerted effort from the corner to ride him over the top for an assured victory, but he deserved a decision tonight. That's what I have to say with my opening statement about that, Reggie.
Man, he put Nova Scotia on the map. Man, he introduced me to some history. I never knew anything about black folks being over in Nova Scotia in the present. So he brought notice over to Nova Scotia, and he fought well against a high-rated high-rated former champion, and that was a good showing for himself. And in that showing, with the minimal that he did, he stood to bring a draw in a fight against a former champion. So it lets him know where he should be. But like you were saying in the chat, a lot of these fighters don't know how to use imagination. And that was the thing. Like, this guy needs to dream big. He needs to dream bigger, dream like he belongs at this level, like he belongs in the ring. He has to exude some level of confidence. And being that aspect was missing, he came in here and fought. He fought like an uncomfortable underdog until he started to realize that, man, it ain't so dangerous up here. I can compete up here. And if he would have came in with that same level of thought, that higher level of confidence and self-belief, he could have pressed the action on Lipinets and really put a beating up on him. He could have really, really made a better showing of himself, even though everything was good. Because, like you said, he fights in a professional style. He's responsible defensively. Lipinets couldn't crack this guy with not one damn thing. Lipinets loading up to even try to get a shot in there. So that just shows that there's some good aspects with this guy. He just has to sit down, press forward, start trying to back these other fighters up rather than him having to move around. Even when he's moving around, find ways to using it. And with his hand speed, that was the other thing. His speed was a clear separator versus Lipinets. He could have mixed in quick combinations, got up out of there, moved around, quick combinations, like you were saying, go in there, grab him up, hold him, let the ref reset it. He had many things.
That's the thing. That's the thing, Reggie. You hit the nail on the head. I didn't even get a chance to mention that yet about his speed. See, when you said in the opening round, you was like, whoa, this guy got a jab. You know what I mean? You said it because you saw it. Not only did it have snap, it had pop on it. There was some power on that jab. And when you're a fighter that could do that, man, you can dictate. Lipinets could have run into a shot and got knocked out because this guy could have varied those shots. If he had mixed in some hooks off the jab or threw a double jab with a right hand behind it and a left hook, Lipinets would have been on his heels because the guy had something. This is not a guy who arrived and was kind of growing up in the moment and all of that false narrative crap. This was a guy who hadn't fought on this level before as far as being on TV and everything, which was something, and I understand that. But, you know, for me, if I'm working this corner, and we would have had this conversation far before arriving on the scene, right? I would have been like, listen, this is your night. This is when the world finds out who you are. Do you remember that scene in the movie Black Panther when he was having that fight with the guy on the mountain and everything, and they was watching? It was for the right to be the Black Panther, and the people, his mom yelled out, show him who you are. You know what I mean? That's what you're there for. You want to show the people who you are. And so once you got the butterflies shaking out, because remember, after 3-4 rounds, you done exchanged some shots now, okay? It's time for the butterflies to be gone. And it's time for you to say, you know what? I'm going to lay some leather on his ass because he going to try to lay some leather on my ass. So the corner has to be aware of the circumstances. His defense was sound. He was sharp as far as watching everything. Now it's time to switch it up. Change your levels, okay? I noticed that he was also trying to use the Jamel Charlo jab to the pit of the stomach. He was doing that a few times throughout the fight, which is, it means that he's a student, okay? He's a student of what goes on. Because he was using that shot. And guess what? He hurt Lipinets a couple of times in this fight. There was one uppercut I think he threw to the solar plexus that kind of had Lipinets huffing and puffing. Okay? But like I said, he's a good bluffer. You know, he's a poker face guy. But the wonderful thing about understanding that about guys who are poker face and don't show you they hurt or whatever, when you land the shot, and even if you don't, you might think, well, that shot didn't hurt him. He ain't supposed to tell you it hurt. He ain't supposed to go back up in agony and all that, because then you're going to jump on him. But what you do is, oh, he took that one well. Let me see if he'll take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more. You see what I'm saying? I remember Lennox Lewis, your favorite fighter. He said one time after fighting one of the opponents, I don't know which one it was. You might remember because you know his history and his bouts. But he was talking about a guy who was taking shots. And he was like, asked by Larry Merchant. He appeared to show, a good chin early on. He was taking these shots. And Lennox was like, yeah, I saw that he was taking shots. And he was like, so I was like, have some more then. That's the way you got to think about it. You don't worry about, oh, bam, I hit him. He got a rock solid chin. I ain't going to throw that punch no more because he's got a rock solid chin. Man, don't you know water is the most hardest substance because it can penetrate anything, metal, granite, whatever. You have a water drip on concrete, just constantly is going to penetrate and go through to whatever's beneath it. Be water, as Bruce Lee would say, and continue to hit him on that chin or bang him in the body. Oh, he can absorb shots. Well, here's a few more. Let him have it. You know why? Because those who give that perception of strength are actually trying to cover up for what? Weakness. It's a philosophy. This is why they call it the sweet science. You understand? So this young man, he could go far. But they do need to raise the bar as far as their expectations of his talent and the expectations that they bring to his corner. They have to raise their game as well, because there will be fights that they're going to have to coach him through. This was one of them. They slipped by and got a draw, but it should have been a unanimous decision for him. It really should. So, that's another thing that I wanted to say about that. You there?
Yeah, yes indeed. Yes indeed. Now I was trying to come off of mute.
Yeah, so, but it was a great fight. I really like what I saw from him, and I want to see him again. But I don't want to see him just in fights that are like, because this was a tough fight for him, but he grew up in this fight. He's got some experience that he never would have gained fighting lesser opposition. But this is something definitely to build on. And I don't want them just putting him in with everybody who wants to bring him in as an opponent for them. Treat him like he's a new car and you're trying to keep the scratches off the paint and you want to keep it shining and buffed. That's what how they have to treat him. He needs to get some world-class sparring. Okay? And he needs to be treated as such, like, hey man, you know what? I'm on the fringe of contending with these other guys, but I'm not going to be nobody's dinner. And the next fight he goes in where he's fighting a quality guy, he has to go in there with a seek and destroy type mindset and preparation. Because from this point on, he's on the scene now. So it's time for people to learn who he is. So you got anything else on this, or you want to move on to the next fights?
No, move on to the next fight, but no doubt, man. He hopefully he gets his next shot. And then the next moment he begins to realize sorry about that. Like you said, he just has to vision forward. He has to have a larger vision of what a good performance can take him and the heights that it can take him to, and be willing to rise to those heights, man. Not shy away from the moment. And that's all I have to say. But I definitely want to see him back on here again. He came on the big stage, the American stage, and that's where a fighter wants to take their career, especially fighting out of Nova Scotia. And I'm tripping off of that.
Yeah. And for a guy who, come from a place where not many of us are familiar with, or know what's happening from where he is from. He did very well, and much respect to the brother. You know, like I said, I want to see him again, and I'm hopeful that he gets an opportunity where he could be showcased in a manner of which, you know, he has a real coming out party. So, but yeah, let's go to this next one, man, where we saw what was his name? Martinez and Marrero. Tongue tied there. Another good fight, Reggie. Undercard co-main event type situation that saw two fighters given as well as they got. Your call on this was exceptional. This was something that it had a little drama to it. So why don't you give us your recollections of this call and the action that was between Martinez and Marrero tonight?
Hey, man, this is a good fight, man. Going in this one, I was going for Claudio Marrero. I know who Marrero is and watched several of his fights down at the lower weights. Know his style. He fights at a good southpaw style. And being a veteran, I'm like wondering, like, can this young kid fight up to this level? And being I haven't seen too many of Martinez's fights. But going into this one, man, I seen Marrero looking like himself, fighting a patient fight in that first round. But also seeing this young kid fighting back with him. Marrero throws a shot, this kid throws back the shot. Marrero steps around him, he pivots around along with Marrero, and he just stayed on the attack. He pressured Marrero, he caused Marrero to kind of hesitate going into like round 3 and round 4. He just started taking over the rounds. Even when Marrero would come out, I don't know what kind of instructions Marrero was getting from the corner to where maybe they tell him he fell back on the round. Marrero would come out and just jump on the kid, put on this attack on the kid, and the kid weathers that stuff. It looks like Marrero landing these big shots. Looks like he's hurting the kid. Marrero goes back to relax, and he done threw out his whole load on that one. And then the kid turned around, and it's his turn now. Now he starts bombing back on Marrero. It's like, damn, this dude is just coming with it. The kid used his height effectively, working his jabs, throwing his power shots. Stepped in properly. He ended up catching Marrero. Anytime Marrero, he just knew that left hand was coming. So it's like he studied for the southpaw fighter, where that left hand was a non-factor for Marrero, like damn near the whole fight. So the kid just knew when that left hand was coming, he'll make Marrero fall forward with the left hand, and bam, the hand's touching right up on Marrero. He just put hands right on Marrero as soon as he falls forward from throwing one of these overcommitted shots. Moving around. This kid just moved around. Both of them start landing big punches at one point. And it was just a matter of this kid really just outworking Marrero in this very close fight. It was a real close fight, but him outworking Marrero going into these rounds. So I had him pulling away from Marrero at this point until we get to round 8, because up to round number 7, only had Marrero winning 2 rounds of the 7. We going to round 8. It was one punch that landed, and it changed everything for the kid. I thought the fight was about to be over. Marrero drops the kid twice. On that second knockdown, it looked like the kid was struggling to get up. When he finally got to his feet, he was wobbled. He was dazed. Made the count, and then the kid fought back. I said, God damn, what the hell? That had to mess Marrero up, man, because it messed me up. Because I'm thinking Marrero about to finally get this knockdown. He dropped the kid twice, got the kid hurt. And I was saying the whole time, the kid ain't recovering from this punch. He ain't going to recover from the punch. That's one of them punches. He ain't recovering from it. And this tough-ass kid recovered from that and got the fighting, putting tips on Marrero. I thought he was about to hurt Marrero the way he was fighting back. Then from there, I think I gave Marrero that round after that. He fought good. And from there, from round 10 to 12, Marrero didn't win none of the rounds. It's like Marrero slowed down. Even the whole fight, Marrero was having to need ice put on him, needing to massage his legs out. But this kid was just too much. Even, like I said, Marrero would come out, go on the attack, and even in that 9th round, after the round where the kid survives out of being knocked down, Marrero tried to jump up on the kid, and the kid still weathered that. And they turned it around on Marrero and started fighting his way back. this is a tough kid, and this was a great test for this kid. He went through a war with a veteran, someone to test him, a southpaw veteran, and this kid passed every mark. And to show that kind of heart getting put down like that, and really having the will move forward, this kid has something greater, man. That for him not to give up like that, it shows that he has some type of mission that he's on, and being knocked down, if he ain't out, ain't nothing gonna stop him. And to watch that, man, hey, hats off to this dude. This kid tough as shit, man. Tough kid.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, your call was excellent, especially during that moment of drama in that 8th round. What I learned, well, not learned, but I've learned it from watching fights in the past and being in the situation of being in the corner of someone that either scores a knockdown or get knocked down. One thing that Martinez realized when he got up, it was almost, I could read it in his expression. He wasn't as hurt the first time, he was just stunned, right? But the second time he was a little more hurt. But what he realized after getting up the first time, which helped him in the second time of getting up, was this ain't so bad. You understand? It's like, because part of the thing about being knocked off your feet in a boxing match is the embarrassment. Everybody see your butt on the canvas, and it's like, dang, it's like being shamed or something like that or whatever. But that goes away right away. Unless when you're dropped from something that hurts you and you've got to regather your faculties and things like that. But see, that first time he went down, he got up, that's when he walked away from the ref, and he's like, yeah, that wasn't so bad. But when he got dropped that second time, he was a little bit more hurt, right? And what happened was he realized, I'm in shape for this. I'm in shape. I'm good. After that, he fought better. You see? And even the ploys of Marrero didn't work anymore. You mentioned during your call that he went to these different styles. He was emulating Emmanuel Augustus. He was emulating Roy Jones. He was doing these different tactical things to thinking like maybe I could confuse this kid and switch things up or whatever, which was the wrong thing to do, by the way. But all it did was put Martinez more focused on his task at hand. Like you said, he's on a mission. His focus was, I gotta win this fight. And he fought like that. Now, let's go back for one moment to the knockdown again. When Marrero put him down, he thought the fight was over. And he fought like it the rest of the way. Because when the kid got up from the first knockdown, he went after him and everything. He got the second knockdown. He thought, oh, I got him. Okay? But he blew the knockout because of how he went after him. Remember, these guys, experienced or not, and in this instance, it was Marrero who was the experienced guy. He blew the knockout by not setting the knockout up. He didn't go to the body. He didn't pick his shots. He just kind of waded in and allowed the guy to reach out and be able to grab him and everything and tie him up and stuff like that, which is, again, I've spoken about this on the Tuesday Tussle. You have to separate yourself. You have to put just enough distance between the fighter so you can see his condition and not give him a chance to slow your momentum. If you close the gap too much, he can reach out and grab you and tie you up and kill time. If you get in even still more too close, you can smother the shots that it's going to take him out of there. Being the experienced guy, he's supposed to know this. And he blew it. He blew the knockout. because a couple of good, clean shots would have put Martinez in a situation of thinking like unsteadiness and loss of confidence. But he didn't do that. He gave him a safety net. He got too close and he was able to reach out and grab. Then when he realized, I'm okay, remember, before the bell rang to end that round, he was back boxing again and was in good shape. And you was like, look at this dude, come back. You know, you called it. But see, the man blew the knockout. And he never got that opportunity again because the kid refocused and dialed in on what the task was at hand. See, this is why, again, it's a sweet science. This is not just physicality, okay? This is not just being brutal or a big puncher or something like that. Because when you are in a situation of where you got to work the problem out, that's when you find out who is actually really skilled and versed at being able to take a guy apart and who's not. Why do you think guys like Julio Cesar Chavez or Wilfredo Gomez or whatever, these guys have so many knockouts? Because not only just because they punch, but they would break guys down. It's a system to it. And you don't just go in there waiting in because you landed a good shot and dropped a guy. Remember, I said a moment ago, if a guy can take a shot, he gets up from your shot, you just keep hitting him. Keep dropping him. Keep dropping him. Keep hitting him. Keep dropping him. Keep hitting him. And then you persevere. But you don't think you just boom, one and done. If the guy get up, you got to still go to work. You look at Tommy Hearns when he was knocking guys out. He ain't never give those guys a chance to wrap him up and stuff like that. He keep that distance on them guys. And when they do extend their arms for the reach to try to hold or tie up, bam, he dropping shots again. And there they go on the canvas. See, there are things that you can work on in the gym. But how many people really work on those things? Because there's not a lot being taught today. But he blew that knockout. And you said that that's kind of the way he used to fight, but he kind of changed up because his cornermen don't want him to go for broke or whatever. But getting to a later point of a fight with a young guy like that, you're supposed to take him out to sea and drown them. You're not supposed to make him feel like he belonged. By the end of that fight, the guy had been knocked down twice, got up twice, and finished the fight. He felt like, hey, I belong here. Turning up the heat on him in the later rounds is what Marrero was supposed to do. Maybe that fighter that his corner didn't want him to be no more or whatever, he didn't have to be that for the first 6, 7, 8 rounds. But in the championship rounds, that's who he was supposed to be, to make sure he ensured himself a victory. You see the lack of intelligence behind the circumstances? It's like you don't want the guy to feel like he belongs, but you have to string him along and give him a false sense of confidence that the coast is clear, it's safe. And then you turn the light out on him, and then you bust him upside the head like a crook. And then you take his wallet. You see? That's how it's supposed to work. But yeah, man, that's, Xavier Martinez grew up a lot in that fight. And he knows he got heart now. He knows I could get up. He knows I could go the distance. He knows I could go the distance and win. That's going to be a hell of a combination of tools to put in the box for his next fight and for whoever faces him out there next. That's going to be very interesting for him. And he will grow up quite a bit from this experience. I mean, what do you think about that, Reggie?
No, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think the kid has grown tremendously in this one. And he's at 130. Pretty deep division. And I think this is the kid that many of these people, while we got all the other guys speaking, the more well-known guys that are speaking about, their reign over this division and whatnot, this guy may be a guy who comes from left flank and ends up catching many people off guard. And to be honest, speaking of it, I think he just fought the best competition at the damn division amongst those that are at 130. To be honest, now that I'm thinking about it, even with Morrell moving up, I think Morrell's experience and skill and styles and ability to give you different looks, I don't think too many of the other up-and-coming young prospects have fought nobody like a Morrell at this level. And to watch this guy go in there and really bring it to Morrell, he really brought a fight to Morrell. This guy at every moment, because Morrell, for one, is a southpaw. Morrell gives you different looks. Morrell's a heavy-hitting southpaw. And so this is a lot that these other young up-and-coming prospects haven't been up against. I mean, so he may be a guy who comes in out of nowhere and left flanks a lot of the big names up there if they're sleeping on. This is a dude who many people are going to sleep on, and he's going to slowly rise up out of nowhere. So this is a kid to watch out for. This kid tough as hell, man. But yeah, that's all I got on that one.
Well, speaking of tough as hell, let's move on to the first fight of the night that we got a chance to see. That was supposed to be a showcase feature for Mr. Malik Hawkins, okay? And this turned out to be the Subriel Matias show. This fight right here, Reggie, from the opening bell, you could see that Hawkins was definitely a deer in headlights, and that Matias, once he realized that he possessed the type of power that could do damage to this kid, he needed some help from his corner, but not like the type of help that it wasn't the type of help that Clayton needed in his fight. Hawkins needed somebody to throw the towel in for him. He was being battered, pillar to post. He was busted up. He was knocked down. It was like he didn't look like a guy who belonged. And shame on his corner and that ringside physician that you had mentioned, that female ringside physician that wanted to continue to send this young man out. There are reasons why people end up in the worst way for boxing, and none of them should be like the reasons that we saw tonight, that a guy could end up in a bad way. This was one of the most poorly officiated fights by a referee, consulted by a ringside physician, and coached by a corner that I've ever seen. A combination, a trifecta, if you will, of buffoonery. I'll let you go ahead and give your recounts on it, and I'll come back with something on it. But what were your thoughts of this fight, Reggie, as you called it and watched it and everything that took place?
Man, this crap was brutal as hell. And early on, man, it was in that first round, I was like, what the hell is Malik Hawkins doing? Malik Hawkins is too caught up in flash, too caught up in looking. That's a problem I got with. I ain't about letting fighters shine and look good, because there was mistakes this kid made early in that first round, and I was calling it out. Being he's a 6-foot fighter. His opponent 5'8", 5'9", or whatever he is. Hawkins early on in the fight is fighting on the inside. Therefore, you revealing everything you got, because right on the inside is where an opponent gets to experience what your power is listed at. And from there, and then not just because you're a tall fighter, but knowing it's a tall fighter, if you ain't got that big of a punch, why are you sitting in there? Because now you get to allow this opponent, this tough, high pressure, 100% knockout rated a fighter in there, and a fighter who has killed somebody in the ring. You going on the inside to fight this guy to give off your power. Now he gets to really measure where you at physically. That's where I had the issue with him fighting on the inside. And along with staying on the outside, like, work the jab, move the jab around. He feeling flashy because he was landing a couple of shots on the inside on Subriel. He was catching Subriel. He was getting the best of Sabril early in that early part of the fight in the first round, so he felt good about that first round. Comes out the first round, going into that second round. The next thing I see this dude doing, he looking outside the ring talking to somebody. I said, man, what the hell are you doing? And first of all, ain't really nobody in the damn arena, so what the hell are you doing talking to people? Keep your eye on the guy. He really took his eyes off the dude to say something outside the ring. I said, man, this fool is gone. Like, you in here with a goddamn killer, dude, literally. And this dude, Sabril, just kept walking forward on him, catching him with these jabs, immediately started targeting the body. He knew exactly how to slow this kid down. Start beating towards the body, thumping this dude up so bad. It got to the point where Sabril literally was walking with his hands down, just taking punches to the jaw. He wasn't worried nothing about what Malik Hawkins had to throw at him. He just took it right on the chin because it was going to do nothing to him. And he just constantly walked forward, beating on this dude. And it got to that one point out of nowhere, I think in the fourth round or something, as they watching this dude just taking a beating, his eyes swelling, he's really not responding in the corners. You see his body language just change, and he was just getting beat up bad in this fight. And before they started a round, they brought that female physician over there. She checks him out, gives him a look, and I'm like, what the hell? How you send this dude out there? He ain't doing nothing. And matter of fact, I'll forget this point. It was early in that first round where Malik Hawkins started holding that dude. He got hit with a punch or something, and he immediately went to holding the first round. I'm like, man, it's too early to be holding on a guy like that. And the style that Sabril does to dudes. And as it went later and later in the fight, it became more dangerous for Malik. But when the physician looked at him, I'm like looking like, what is she looking at? Is she going to pull him out the fight? She let it go on. He went out there and was just constantly still getting beat on. Mostly he kept holding throughout the fight. He was holding excessively to where some referees would have probably warned him or gave him a warning for that type of stuff. But the ref understood. It was like, let's just give this kid an opportunity, let him hold and whatever it is. But then Malik got to a point to where the beating was so bad to where he was angled or the ref was behind him. He deliberately was trying to low blow Sabril, but he's caught him in the thigh. But he deliberately was trying to low blow this guy to try to buy himself whatever kind of time or whatever he needed. He at least needed a warning or take the time to take the point so he can at least try to gather himself. And none of it worked, man. And to hear the cornerman, and then I'm like, where's the cornerman? Stop this fight. Like, nobody saves these damn fighters. I don't see referees doing it. But then to hear the corner in there when he goes in the fight was like, man, you got to show me something or else I'm going to stop it. And then we go into that damn coming out the sixth round. He let the damn fighter go out there for the seventh. Lucky they switched positions. And that was crazy. I never seen nothing like that to where they told the lady, sit your ass down. Like, sit down. We about to bring this guy in here. Lucky they had a backup position to come in there. And he looked over Hawkins to stop it because other than that, Hawkins' safety was in jeopardy because his corner to let him go out there like that was crazy. It was crazy because even in that round that he said that he needed to see something, Hawkins didn't do nothing. Hawkins didn't do nothing but hold this guy. And it was bad, man. But thank God they brought that second position. They made a position change, and they got the right decision to that doctor telling the ref to go ahead and stop it. Because other than that, his safety was in jeopardy. He probably went to the hospital tonight. He probably definitely went to the hospital. Now, I remember they did the fighter's trek at the end. And here the coach trying to give out all these instructions and telling Hawkins to do this and do that. Hawkins ain't responding, ain't paying attention to none of it. All Hawkins said was, okay, yep. That's how he's done, man. From there, the coach should have just said, we stopping this fight, man. But that's all I got, OG. That was brutal, man.
Wait a minute. What about that one round, Reggie? I think it was the fourth round, fifth round, when the doctor was checking him for a concussion or something. Remember? It was like, don't forget that part.
Right.
They were checking him out. I mean, if y'all thought that he needed a look at that moment, it was probably close to time up, man. This is crazy. Absolutely insane. But I'll tell you something. Maybe Deontay Wilder need to hire those corner guys because they ain't going to throw a towel in to save their life. This man out there needed help, okay? The NAACP, somebody, the Rainbow Coalition, somebody need to get out there and save the brother because the corner didn't give a damn. They were like to the death, okay? They wanted that kid to get killed out there. How can you be looking in his face? And we're looking at it on TV, damn it. How can you be looking in his face and think he's in shape to continue to go out there and take that hiding that he's getting, man? The kid's eye was swollen damn near shut. He was like not focused in the corner. Like you said, they talking to him and he like, yeah, okay. You know, the dude had checked out. And remember, this is a sport where you're viewed as a gladiator. The fighters are supposed to go out on their shield, okay? But sometimes the shield is the corner man, okay? You can save that kid and his career for another day. But by letting him get beat like he was beaten, you took days, fights off of his career by letting him take that type of punishment. I talk about this all the time. I was like, it's more than just being in that gym with a towel over your shoulder and a toothpick in your mouth slapping pads, huh? Because pads don't hit back. People like Matthias do, and they can give you blood clots. Blood clots lead to comas, okay? And comas can lead to death. This is serious business here. I talk about it all the time, man, and people kind of make ridicule of it and everything. There goes Stormy talking about the trainers of today. Yeah, you just saw it tonight. What the hell were those guys looking at? We watched Isaac Dogbe, dad, his own flesh and blood, leave him out there to be beaten half to death by Navarrete, man. The guy couldn't even do anything. He's like, oh, bouncing around and off the canvas and wobbling all over the place. And his dad was like, fight back. What the hell? You know, so come on. There has to be some consistency with this. And when a corner leaves their person out there like that, they should have their licenses reviewed and everything. Okay, at what point did you think that Malik was in good shape right here? Yeah, ask him that question. What point do you think Malik was still in good shape right here? Remember, he went down. I got my scorecard here. He went down in the 8th round. Okay? I mean, in the 6th round. And they stopped it at the end of the round. The doctor did. But it's like, before he went down, he was in much bad shape. His eye was closing. He wasn't responding, like Reggie said, in the corner when they talking to him and everything. So what were they looking at? You don't get extra money or a bonus for going the distance. So you can't say, well, we were trying to give him every shot in the world to be out there. Man, what were they looking at? I want to know that. I really want to know the answer to that question. Because I wouldn't want guys like that working in my gym or being a part of an entourage of people being concerned over a fighter's care, being a part of that. Because that's a damn circus. That's a circus. And from what I saw from this guy, I have not seen Malik fight before tonight. He wasn't ready for this type of fighter. There was nothing about him that I saw in those 6 rounds that said he should be in there with somebody like that. So who the hell said that that was okay? Who greenlit that? As I said in Reggie's chat, I said if he had concentrated more on the fight and the opponent that he had faced and being prepared in that regard over how he was going to look when he entered the ring, because you could see that designer, his trunks outfit and over jacket or whatever. That's where he spent all his time and effort on that. All that fur and plush looking stuff and all of that. That's foolishness, man. When you get out there in that bell ring, it's a guy trying to take your head off. And as Reggie has stated, there was a man who he killed somebody. with his fist. You don't play boxing, man. What the hell are you thinking out there? But that's these guys today. And what the hell was that shoulder roll shit and you getting hit flush all the damn time? He was getting hit so flush, Sabril Matias was coming in with his hands down like this, trying to pick which shot he wanted to hit him with. That's freaking ridiculous. And you see these things happening, and you have to question, who are the hell are the people with him? This is like disgraceful. If I was related to that man, Mr. Hawkins, I'd be pissed off at those guys. That doesn't mean he's not a professional fighter, but he wasn't ready to be in there tonight with that opponent. What the hell were these people looking at? That's what I have to say about that, Reggie. It's just a disgrace, man. And that kid could have lost his life. Because he damn sure wasn't even able to get out of the way of shots. Shit was landing flush, man. Left and right, uppercuts, everything. That's why Matias was throwing everything in the book. And it was hitting him solidly. Dang. I don't like that, man. I don't like it. As much as I love the sport of boxing, I don't like inadequacy. I don't like people who are out there on some foolish stuff, man. And there's so many of them out there. Who the hell were those cornermen? Thank goodness they had masks on so you wouldn't be able to see them when they walked down the damn street. They probably didn't even bring a towel to throw in. These guys were horrible. And again, as much as we talk about judges, we talk about refs, you know, let's start talking about these damn corners too. Bringing men that are not prepared for a professional bout. It reminds me of when Mike Tyson fought Buster Douglas. You know that night Buster Douglas kept sticking that jab and them right hands in Mike Tyson's eye, and his eye swole shut. Those fools didn't even bring an answell. They put some ice in a damn rubber glove and was holding it against his eye like this, and his eye shut on him. So he never saw the uppercut or any other punches in the later rounds that Buster was hitting him with. That's why he got knocked out. But they didn't think that they needed to bring an answell. Because Tyson always knocked people out. Well, we're only going to be here. We're only going to work a couple of rounds tonight, so we shouldn't bring an answell. Really? It's amateur night with a lot of these cornermen. Who the hell are these guys? You know? And you have to hold them accountable. That's somebody's life, bro. That's somebody's life. That's somebody's son. That's somebody's brother, cousin, nephew. And like you said, he's probably in a hospital tonight. That's all I got on that one, man.
Yeah, man. Now you hit on points where I'm in the back. I'm like thinking of these points, and you hit on about that. This fight tonight took something out of this kid.
Yeah.
This fight took something out. They left him in there. And I kept saying, doing a play-by-play, and I was like, as I'm saying, I'm saying it too much. Like, stop the fight. But I'm like, damn, I'm saying it too much. Let me not over-repeat myself. Like, they're going to eventually stop it. And they didn't. And then I'm like, man, this kid's going to be really, this is going to really affect this kid. And somebody came in the chat who was asking about the fight because they were supporting Malik Hawkins. And it was like, oh, what happened in the fight? Like, I guess they got there late. And it was like, man, he was stopped. He was beaten bad. And they was like, man, they rushed this kid too fast. And I'm like, that's the problem, especially with all these damn belts. Everybody's rushing to be one of these whatever kind of champions that is out there. and they pushed him in there with somebody he was not ready for. And even in his last fight, he didn't get the proper preparation. They put him in there against, I think that guy's named Darwin Price. And that guy pulled his hamstring, but it was in a fight where they're both going back and forth. It wasn't that he separated himself against Price. He was getting hit with a lot of stuff. It was that Price ended up having some leg injury. Why are you advancing his career into this guy into a fight against a guy like that? He should have been slow tracked. He's a young fighter, 23. Stop fast tracking these goddamn fighters. Develop them. Why is he going for a championship title if he's not fully developed? And that's the problem. That's where the conflict. You want to see fighters get paid, but at the top level, you fighting against guys with more experience, more well-versed in the game. They understand the science. They're more resilient. It is hard to get a lot of these guys up out of here. You're still young, still developing, and matter of fact, still underdeveloped. There's no reason to be pushing these guys up to these levels right here. Slow track them, take their time. I understand a lot of them come out of poverty, looking to make some quick, fast money up to the top, but your health and safety is the other things that you have to weigh out. You got to weigh out your pluses and minuses. And going in here against a guy like that, Malik wasn't ready. And especially with his underdevelopment. If he was more developed, he would have understood staying on the jab, staying out of range. And by the time he's beat up, the damn trainer talking about use your stick, stay on the outside, move around. Like the fighter broken down already. Ain't got nothing else to throw no damn jab. It's time for you to throw in the damn towel. Stick the towel in the damn ring. And then also you were speaking about damn, I should have wrote that other point down. About taking away from the guy, and shit, it'll come back to me because it's an important point as well. But yeah, this fight definitely took something away from this young kid, and there was no reason for him to be in here. He wasn't prepared for it, and it's a sad situation. Now back to the drawing table he goes. They done further reversed his forward progress, and now has been really pulled back. But we'll see what happens, man.
And there's another point too, Reggie, that if he was getting beaten on like that during this fight, if he had any kind of quality sparring in the gym, he was getting beat on in the gym. He had to be, unless they were bringing guys that were beneath his caliber in as sparring partners. Now, if that was the case, that was real ill preparation, huh?
No, I said they were, because that point you made up, they always speaking about how great this kid be in the gym doing against sparring partners. So you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. So, you know, this kid, they took some years and fights off of his career with that performance tonight. Remember, you can always save a guy. You could say, hey, I'm not sending you back out there. And you call the ref over and say, hey, we're done. And when they talk to you at the press conference, hey, what happened or whatever, he sprained his shoulder. He broke his hand. You know, whatever. You, as the coach, you could take that off of the fighter because you stop it. You know, Angelo Dundee finally said, I'm the chief second. I stopped the fight in the 10th round for Muhammad Ali against Larry Holmes. It was probably 4 rounds too late, but he still did it. You have to have a point where you draw the line and you look for the best interest of the fighter. If they stopped that round 3 rounds earlier, say, hey, he broke his hand or something, man, we thought we were just getting into the fight or whatever, even though he's getting his butt kicked by Sabril, right? You could say these things. But when you let it go to this point right here, and then the damn ring doctor had to stop the fight. Not even the original ring doctor, but a second one. Because the original one didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I mean, this is the type of thing, you see it all the time. But when are people going to stand up and say, you know what? Enough is enough. I love the sport of boxing. I love to watch fighters competing. Like Martinez tonight, that young man got up from a knockdown, was able to shake things off and finish to victory. Great stuff. Now, in the Lipinets fight, we saw a guy who had never fought anyone at that level, but he had what it takes to be at that level. So that was a total different situation for Clayton, right? But in this fight with Malik Hawkins, he wasn't ready for that level. And you could see it from early on. They have to do they have to do something, man. They have to do something. So just wanted to say that, man. Did you have anything else?
No, I think they just need to pace these fighters out a little bit more. And matter of fact, he's a kid out of the Tank Davis circle of things. He's out of that camp, and think he's wanting to be where Tank is and having people around the city up on him. But they just have to realize and have a better understanding of the sport. It's a marathon. This ain't no sprint. Slow it down. Really slow it down.
Absolutely. And look here. I was in the gym with Donnell Nicholson when he was still a good quality heavyweight fighter. And he carried, I think, a WBU title at the time or whatever. And I had a guy I was working with. And my guy's name was Russell Felger. Russell was a Caucasian heavyweight, big guy, 6'4", 255 pounds. Had a very good jab, heavy right hand. And Donnell would always ask us about sparring. And Russell was an amateur. But my mentor, Eddie Davis, had worked with Russell a bit, and he passed Russell over to me, and he was like, go ahead and you work with him and see. And I started changing things about Russell. So as Donnell was asking, hey, you want to do some work today? And I'd be like, no, we're not ready for that yet. We got some things to work on. So about 4 or 5 months went by, me working with Russell. And then I started to have a little confidence in what he was doing after I was showing him some things. And Donnell asked us one day, he said, hey, you want to do some work? He was actually thinking I was going to say no again. I'll say, yeah, we'll get in there with you, do some work with a couple rounds. And Russell got in there, and he was able to hold his own. Not like he beat up Donnell Nicholson, because I would never try to say that. But he was more prepared to deal with this fighter who was a professional and had Olympic-type amateur background after the 6 months that we worked together than he was when they were actually letting him work with guys without showing him certain things. So he was no longer in there to be just beat up on because he was a big guy. He was in there now being competitive, you see, able to land shots back, able to move out of the way of shots, able to take care of himself better, this, that, and the other. And he told me one day, he was like, hey, man, I really appreciate how you work with me. And he was like, you shown me a lot. I've grown by leaps and bounds. And then there were some old guys in the gym that would say to me, man, you really working that kid. That's when they were asking me, like, where'd you get all of that experience and knowledge and stuff like that? But I tell that story because, like you said, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And there'll be another chance on another occasion for you to step up and do things. But all the while you're on that path, you take as much information and data as you can, and you store it, and you apply it, and you put it to use, and you make sure you remember it, okay? You keep it safe, keep it close, because that is what is going to help you when you're out there and you persevering and you have questions asked of you and things like that. You'll be able to apply the science of what you're doing because someone will have given you the data to answer those questions. Again, I don't care if this kid was in the gym with Tank Davis. Tank Davis is on a world-class stage right now. Whether he's ready for it or not or whatever, I'm not even questioning that because he's already there. But this kid right here, didn't look like he belonged on Showtime TV tonight. He didn't. And those people who couldn't recognize that he was in peril, if that's Tank's people, pay close attention to him when he goes out there and he finds himself under challenge and everything, because they'll do the same thing. I hope he doesn't have to end up with that type of fate, but it's like you have to understand that fighters need people who could take care of them, who could save them from themselves. Because it's drilled into them, don't quit, don't quit, don't quit. But somebody needs to be able to look at it as, you've had enough, son. Come on, sit down. Okay? And that's important. That's every bit as important as trying to drive somebody. You got one more round. You can do it. Because remember, Meldrick Taylor, who was one of the greatest talents that pro and amateur boxing ever saw, in his biggest moment was being battered by Julio Cesar Chavez. And his cornermen were so hungry for victory that they were pushing this kid and pushing this kid and pushing this kid against Chavez, when they could look in his face after every round and he had a broken orbital. He had swallowed a pint of his own blood. He was sitting in there and he was basically sleepwalking out there. But they was telling him and drilling, we need this round, Mel. We need this round. He was already winning the fight on his talent alone. But he was out there trying to follow those instructions that they were telling him. And he got knocked out by Chavez in the last round. 2-3 seconds to go. He was never the same. Never the same. And those guys would not take credit or responsibility for driving him like that, when they could have told him, tie him up, move away, stick your jab, tie him up, move away, stick your jab, those last couple of rounds. Because he had a big lead over Chavez. And now today, Meldrick Taylor is in pretty bad shape. But this was the biggest fight of his life in his career. And all they could see was pushing him to the edge. Who is the person to pull you back from the edge if your coaches are pushing you to the edge? Answer that question. When Teddy Atlas was driving Michael Moore against Evander Holyfield, it was because Holyfield's performance was not up to par that night. And he could see something was wrong with Holyfield. And he was telling Moore, you go out there and do this, because you mess around, you lose this fight, and he'll lose his next one. And he was right. But making that assessment comes from a seasoned person, a person who could see both sides and understand exactly what the fighter is going through and what they're dealing with. But just to push a man out there to the brink, that's not your life to hold in your hands. That's all I got on that, man.
Yeah, no, you cooked that, man. That's all I got. You cooked that well.
So, but yeah, it was another great night with the co-main and the main. We saw some good stuff. Very good fights the past couple of weeks. This is great, man. Boxing is entertaining again, even without the crowds. And we're seeing some competitive matches. I hope we continue. We got some fights coming up next week where we're going to see, you just mentioned, the aforementioned Tank Davis, where he's going to be taking on Leo Santa Cruz. And a lot of people don't know, but it's just around the corner, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Will Tank be ready? Will Leo be ready? I expect somebody to be dropped in this fight, stopped in this fight. And as we get closer to it, we'll have some more breakdowns and whatnot, and we could talk about it. But I think that's it for us for this evening. Reggie, is a great show, man. Hats off to you again. Great post-fight show. Great calling of the fights tonight, man. You did a great job, and I really enjoyed it. You got any final words?
Yeah, man. Thank you, OG. I appreciate that. Thank everybody else for coming out as well. Man, I enjoy that, man. And the thing about boxing coming back, I didn't think boxing was going to be as good as how they're bringing it back. But these fighters are really coming in here, showcasing it. And I appreciate the sport without fans in there, because some of these fans bring, especially out here in America, they bring a real cornball, punkish type vibe to the sport. So just seeing these fighters in kind of the purity of the sport, where it's them locked in, being these fans can't fight for the fighters, and these fighters got to lock in the ring and fight one another without a bunch of chumps in there screaming, booing, and doing all this, because too many casual people that show up to these fights. So I appreciate the fights like this. Fighters can hear the instructions from their corners. They're engaged, locked in on the fights in front of them, if these kids are locked in as well. But they've been putting on some great performances, and I wasn't expecting. I didn't think they would be able to return to boxing. I thought they would put on one event and cancel it because it's a flop. But no, this thing has come back strong, and they put on some impressive fights during this quarantine. I'm liking it. But that's all I got, man. You guys make sure you hit that like button, subscribe up in here, and thanks for coming through.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's it for us for this evening. We'll catch you guys on the next one. This is Stormybman. And for my co-host, Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, we're going to say peace. Everybody have a good night and enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. A moment, Reg, please.
Mm-hmm.